Mr. President, let me just start with you. The minister told me repeatedly on CTV Question Period that the legislation does give power to the CRTC and the government to regulate people who have a lot of followers and who make money, and they, at some threshold, could be considered broadcasters, successful YouTubers and Instagram influencers, and then they could be regulated. Now he says, no, that's not true. Did the minister not understand the bill himself, or is the government now going to have to rewrite it with a more clear exemption rule?
No, I want to clarify, because I think it's a really important point, that if we look at the wording of the bill and of as it stands and of the amendments that have been tabled, that people who are uploading to social media are not covered as a broadcaster by the Act. And in fact, there are very restricted powers by the CRTC, even over the social media companies. So people uploading are not covered, and the requirements for social media companies themselves are more restricted.
Right. So why did the minister say that that wasn't true? Why did he? I mean, he was pretty clear yesterday when he told me, actually, people who have large followings and that maybe are making a lot of money, they eventually could be acting like broadcasters, and the CRTC can come at some threshold and regulate them. So I'm just trying to figure out, does he not know his own bill? Like, if he doesn't know it, why should Canadians trust it?
I think that we have to look to what's written right in the amendments that have been tabled and that I read out in committee, so that that everyone could have it as well before them, and the bill itself, and the wording of the amendment and the 2.1, which you referred to, are very clear about the fact that user content that is uploaded is not covered. The requirements are for the social media companies alone.
Okay, I talked to the Heritage Minister extensively, so I won't do a second version of my interview, but I'll go to Ms. Harder. Are you assured now that the correction has been issued, that user-generated content will not be regulated, or do you think that the bill itself needs to have a stronger exemption written in?
Yeah, thank you for the question. Look, for a bill that is crystal clear, as Mr. Brusen once said, this government sure is having to do a lot of clarification. Look, with the changes that have been proposed, nothing official has happened at committee, by the way, but with the proposed changes, it's just not enough. It's not sufficient. If this government really cares about protecting the content of Canadians and what they're putting on their YouTube channel, then they need to come back with that original section that was in there, which is 4.1, which will protect the content of individual users. But right now, as it stands, the government hasn't provided that to Canadians.
Yeah, let me go. Peter Julian, I know the NDP originally supported this. Now you're not. Are you concerned? Is your party concerned about this? Or, again, and just so people know what Ms. Harder said, the exemption was 4.1. People seem to accept that that was a clear exemption. The government took that out and put an amendment in. Now there's calls to have it back. Is the NDP satisfied that user-generated content will not be regulated?
Well, no, Evan, we're not, which is, and I saw your interview on the weekend, and I thought it was stunning to see the minister contradict himself over the course of the weekend. The reality is we need to get a very clear analysis of charter compliance, the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, and that's what the NDP has been pushing for. So we want to get this situation clarified. I'm gratified that I think the Liberals folded today, and now we're going to get that information to the committee and to the public. But there are aspects of this bill that are sorely needed. The web giants have been making money hand over fist. A lot of local media, as you know, has been in great difficulty. And what we've seen is just a complete crisis of communications from a government and a minister that have been contradicting themselves over the last few days, and nobody knows where they stand right now. So I think we need to sit down, get that analysis from the Department of Justice, and then move on from there.
Let me go back. Julie DeBrusen, you mentioned that there's enough of an exemption in Section 2.1, and I've got it in front of me. Section 2.1 does exempt individuals, but it does not exempt their content. That is the key. In other words, yes, I understand that, but the concern is, and this is what the minister said, their content can be regulated for discoverability if they have a certain threshold. So does the government now realize, based on what happened with the minister's comments, that maybe you need a further clarification and maybe, as Ms. Harder said, put back in that exemption?
Well, so part of this is about the amendment that is right before the committee right now. And the amendment that is before the committee is about the restricted CRTC powers for social media platforms. Really, that the only rules, or the only obligations for social media companies would be with respect to providing information on their Canadian revenues. The CRTC can put requirements as to how much they have to pay as Canadian contributions from those revenues towards creators. And the discoverability requirement is different from the one that applies to television and to radio right now, or traditional broadcasters. It's a much more restricted one that has no requirement that they have a piece about how much Canadian content is on their services. And that's where the content is just never part of the picture.
Okay, so let me just get it straight, because the minister was clear yesterday that if someone's got 1 million followers on YouTube and they're uploading content, and the minister yesterday said, yeah, that person, he or she could be considered a broadcaster. They're making money. There's a threshold, and the CRTC may decide that they need to be subjected to the same regulations. They would be a broadcaster. They have 1 million followers on YouTube or TikTok or Instagram. They're an influencer. They're profiting. They're making money. Are you now saying, no, he said the law yesterday did give them the power. You're now saying, no, the law doesn't give them the power. So does it give the CRTC power to regulate that person as a broadcaster, as a programmer?
It does not. It's about the social media companies and the social media companies alone.
Ms. Harder, want to comment on that?
Well, my question would be, where do those social media companies get their content? They get their content from individuals. Individuals put stuff on Facebook or videos on YouTube, things on TikTok. It is individual Canadians who ultimately will be regulated. Yes, it might be done through the social media companies, but it is individuals, it is their content that will ultimately be regulated. It'll be taken down, it will be moved up or down in the queue, it will be ultimately censored by the government.
That's absolutely incorrect, though, and that part I really take issue with, because it's absolutely incorrect based on what's proposed.
The parliamentary secretary just stated that it will be up to the social media platforms to make sure that the regulations put in place by the CRTC are followed. Those regulations will insist that places like Facebook, TikTok, YouTube make sure that certain content is allowed and is not allowed and is given priority over one over the other.
That's not correct based on what the amendment is that we have. It isn't, because the requirements that would be on the social media company, as they're set out in the amendment, are only as to the revenues that they make in Canada, the expenditures they would make towards Canadian content, and there is no piece that requires them to have a proportion of their content that's Canadian content that's discoverable. That's not the way the rules are set out. And there is nothing about imposing Canadian broadcasting standards. All of those pieces, that's not what's in the amendment. It's very restricted what would apply to those companies.
It's limited, but the question is, and I'll last word to you, Mr. Julian, so what needs to happen now? I know they've limited it, but have they prevented that from actually happening, which is a critical question. Mr. Julian, what do you think needs to happen now?
Well, that's why we've asked for this analysis, and that's why we believe, because the government has utterly messed up on their contradictions, it's very difficult to see when they're contradicting themselves and contradicting each other. The best way forward. There are certain aspects of this bill that are important. We want to make sure we get that full analysis of compliance with the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. The NDP, of course, has always stood for freedom of expression and net neutrality. And this is what has been absent in what I can say is a communications debacle by the minister and by the government.
I got to leave it there. Mr. Julian, Ms. Harder, and Ms. D'Abruzzen, great to have you on. We'll be watching that file closely. I appreciate all of your time today.